listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
I wanna see the light.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for letting us be part of your day. My name is Jerry Mitchell. Sitting beside me, dancing to the beat of the music, is Myra.
Good morning, everyone.
Aren't you glad I updated that not too long ago so you had something to dance to?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm listening to do two different things in each year, so I want to make sure you know what's stopping and starting when.
And that's your story and you're sticking to it, right?
Sure.
Okay. Some quick news. I just received the tweet a few minutes ago. The Pfizer vaccine is no longer experimental. It has been approved by the FDA. Even though there is evidence of extremely harmful side effects to not a minority of people who become vaccinated. There's a lot of things going on with that. You can choose what you want to do. If you want to trust the government, you go right ahead. I will put my trust in the Creator, and that's my decision. So you do what you want. But for me, I think I will. I will stand on the side of the Creator here. Something else that we had news on Friday is what they think is the Capitol Police officer, what they're claiming is the Capitol Police officer on January 6th who shot and eventually killed Ashley Babbitt, has been exonerated by an internal probe. So apparently the United States is no longer a nation of law. It is a nation of not even political will. It has become a nation of something we're going to talk about today. And it's not funny, but it actually all comes together with what we're going to look at. And it's all about, it's time to grow up. Really, seriously, it's time to grow up. When we think about being an adult, what do we think of? What image do you have in your mind? Now let's start with men, okay? If you think of a man, do you think of somebody like John Wayne or Audie Murphy, or do you think of someone who is, dare I use the term, sexy? Okay? Or do you think of an intellectual? Think about the person you might be in a room with, or riding in a car with, or wherever you might be. Do they act responsibly? Do they act like an adult? What about women? When you think of a female, and we all have these weird concepts, right? Do you think of Raquel Welch? Or do you think of somebody like Golda Meir? There's somebody you didn't think I was going to reach back to, isn't it? Do we look for the strong, powerful people, or do we look for beauty? Do we look for something else? Today men are being taught not to be men, and women are told that they are not good enough unless they're equal to men, if the men are told that they shouldn't be men, but the women are being treated like they're not good enough unless they're like the men, isn't that a little confusing and strange and weird? Is it any wonder why the world is in turmoil and as confused as it is today? Think about the adults that you know. Do they act like adults? Now, I don't mean, are they going through the motions of adulthood? There's a lot of people who are responsible that are immature. I can be immature. Myra's laughing at me, but and she's the one who calls me that sometimes. Think about this. I can be immature. I have said that no man ever matures past the age of 16 emotionally, and there's a lot of truth in that, right? Older people like to think they're still able to maintain the stamina that they used to enjoy, that they had when they were younger. They can run as far and as fast as they were able to when they were younger, for instance. Myra, after being injured and not being able to do things, you had not as much muscle mass as you used to have, right?
Right.
And yesterday she says, well, I want to try, and the little bit of grass that you mow in our yard with the riding mower is not that much. It's
You mean push mower?
Or push mower, I'm sorry. It's not that much. It's only about the size of 2 rooms in the average home, right?
Right.
So it's not big, but you did it because you were headstrong and did it. But last night you were sore, right?
A little bit, yes.
So, as we age, we in our minds, we think we can still go back and do what we used to do, but our bodies tell us otherwise. There's social media memes that address this, with their short little catchy sayings about my mind says I can, but my body screams, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Remaining active is healthy. The Bible tells us that we are to work 6 days and rest 1 day. The Bible doesn't mention retirement. There is something in there that says that once a priest reaches a certain level, they can only serve in the temple for a certain number of years. That's not retirement. They are expected then not to serve in the temple, but to teach those who are coming up through and being ready to enter that temple service. We are supposed to remain productive. We're right up until the point we leave this earth. Right up until the point we die, we are supposed to be productive members of society. But that's not how, especially Western civilization, is teaching this today, is it? We have a lot of things going on in the world. We have people who don't act like adults anymore. They want to act like children. And actually, Yeshua addresses this in a interesting way. If you look at Luke 7, verses 31 through 35.
Then Jesus said, "What shall I say about the people of this time? What are they like? They are like children sitting in the marketplace. One group of children calls to the other group and says, 'We played music for you, but you did not dance. We sang a sad song, but you did not cry.' John the Baptist came and did not eat like other people or drink wine, and you say he has a demon in him. The Son of Man came eating like other people and drinking wine, and you say, 'Look at him. He eats too much and drinks too much wine. He is a friend of the tax collectors and sinners.' But wisdom is shown to be right by the things it does."
Now, I can almost guarantee you're not going to hear that passage read in a Baptist church, right? Especially from this translation.
Right.
And King James says he's a wine bibber, which is the same thing as you drink too much wine. But it's one of those fancy, churchy Bible words that a lot of people don't pay any attention to. The point he's making here, what shall I say about the people of this time? What are they like? They're like children. They're like children. What can we say about the people living in our time? They're like children. We'll get to why in a moment. Paul addresses this a little bit in 1 Corinthians. He's he's chastising them just a little bit without them really hearing the chastisement, because he's talking about love here. But in 1 Corinthians 13, 11, and 12, should be familiar to a lot of people.
When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I made plans like a child. When I became a man, I stopped those childish ways. It is the same with us, now that we, as if we were looking into a dark mirror. But at that time, in the future, we shall see clearly. Now I know only a part, but at that time I will know fully, as God has known me.
Okay. What he's getting at, what Yeshua was getting at, what Jesus is getting at, is adults are acting like children. They're self-centered and they're selfish. When children are growing up, we protect them, right? We do things for them. We make them, unfortunately, the center of our attention. You know, Solomon in Ecclesiastes said, remove sorrow from your heart, put away evil from your flesh, for childhood and youth are vanity. They're empty. They're a time when you should be getting filled up. You start out as an empty vessel. Did you follow that? Did I make sense with that? Okay. If you make or purchase an item that's made to hold something, it starts out empty, right? Until you put something in it. It's the same way with children. They're empty until you put something in it. Hopefully what you're putting into those children are, along with the good food that they should be receiving, is proper knowledge. Not teaching tradition, not teaching the doctrines of men. I've got a couple of books out about that and one on the way. By the way, available where fine books are sold, by the way. When you think about putting something good into... and I've used this example before, you wouldn't put diesel fuel in a car engine designed to run on gasoline. You certainly wouldn't put water in either one. So why are we putting garbage into our children? They then grow up, let me say that again, they then grow up believing that they can continue to receive garbage and expect to act like adults. Isaiah begins chapter 28 with, how terrible it will be for Samaria, the pride of Israel's drunken people. And just a few verses later, he chastises them even further, verses 9 through 11.
The Lord is trying to teach the people a lesson. He is trying to make them understand his teachings. But the people are like little babies. They are like babies who just nursed at their mother's breast. So they make fun of the Lord's prophet and say, a command here and a command there, a rule here, a rule there, a lesson here, a lesson there. So the Lord will use strange words and foreign languages to speak to these people.
Okay, now something I need to address here is, this is not about speaking in tongues the way we think of it today. What he's actually saying is he's going to use people from other nations, the Gentiles, to teach, look inside, so to speak, be that looking through the window kind of a thing, and say, you're not living the way your God designed you to live, are you? Right? Now, have you ever heard the phrase, everything in moderation? We can't have too much of this, we can't have too much of that, you just got to be moderate about these things. Well, maybe. What's a little moderate stealing? What's a little moderate adultery? A little moderate murder? Who cares? Well, our Creator cares. Our Creator cares a lot. So much that he is willing to go to great lengths to get his message to the people he loves. even he'll even use us. That's a scary thought, right? He'll even use us. And we know that because of the feedback we get sometimes through people. Sometimes I get messages from other countries that are quite evident. People might not be hitting those follow buttons on our podcast, and if you would do that, it'd be great. 5 stars helps too. But when they do this, they send these messages and they say, "You said something that made so much sense," and I'm glad to be able to do that. But he'll even use somebody like us to get someone's attention and say, you really should live the way you're designed. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians, "Brothers, do not think like children, and evil things be like babies. But in thinking, you should be like grown men." And he says, in other words, when you're thinking about the evil things, you should be empty. But in your mind, be like full-grown men. Be like full-grown adults. He's actually speaking to brothers here, so he says men. But I'll say it for everybody. If you're going to grow up, mature as well. Jeremiah 4:22, "Thus saith Jehovah, my people are foolish. They do not know me. They are stupid children. They don't understand. They're skillful at doing evil, but they don't know how to do good." Now, that is some serious chastisement going on there. That is some extremely serious chastisement going on there. We need to, we need to be mindful that as we are teaching young people, teaching children, as we are filling up those empty vessels, to fill them up with what they need to be responsible, mature adults. Are there going to be those times when when something might call for a little immaturity? Those times when you're around friends and you're having a good time and you're thinking about different things? Yeah, there's going to be those times. But overall, you have to be responsible. You have to act appropriately. When we're babies, we drink milk at first, right? Because you're not going to feed a baby a steak. It's not going to happen. You can try it, but it's not going to do them any good. As you get a little older, you get some soft food. We should be protected by our parents and our teachers, but sometimes they betray us. But our Creator will never betray us. We can trust Him absolutely completely. And a lot of times when somebody is new to the faith, when they just start out, they are that empty vessel, and He will provide at first the milk and then the soft food. But His desire is for us to grow into what He wants us to be. He wants us to be weaned off of the milk and the soft food and get to the steak. And I don't mean the bad cuts of the steak either, because the bad cuts of the steak are sometimes the traditions and the doctrines that look good, but they're not good. Anybody who's really familiar with a good cut of meat knows the difference. Today the butchers are trained to get the most out of a animal instead of getting the best out of the animal. Does that make a difference? That absolutely makes a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. That's why a lot of people are actually, a lot of Gentiles are actually going into the Jewish delis, because they still cut the best out of the animal. He wants us to be weaned off the soft food, eat the bread, eat the meat that he is offering us. And living the way of the world, we remain dependent on other people. When you're dependent on someone else, let me say it this way, when you're completely dependent on someone else, like a child is dependent on a parent or a caregiver, you're not mature yet. Now, don't get that confused with being interdependent in the community. Don't get that confused with being codependent in your relationships and your marriages. There's a huge difference there that you need to understand. You have to be not dependent on other people, completely dependent on the Creator, but not other people. Interdependent, where you benefit from them and they benefit from you in return. But not like a child where somebody else just continually gives you what they think you should have. Living the way our Creator designed us to be, or to live, is the best way to mature as we grow up. Being childish is to be self-centered and dependent on others. And we're guilty of creating this feeling of sin in our children. You know, they're needing to be sheltered when it's really time they mature. We overprotect them. What do they call them now? Helicopter parents? Isn't that the term? Yeah? Okay. Where they never let the child, this is going to sound worse than I intended to mean, they never let the child fall off the monkey bars. They never, when a child never has the experience of going down a sliding board and forgetting to put your feet down, and they hit on their rear end, right? That teaches you things. It teaches you that, well, you got to put your feet down, right? When you're not falling, when you fall off the monkey bars, it teaches you to hang on. But today we have these helicopter parents that hover over them and nothing can hurt them. They never get a splinter. They never have that feeling of dirt under their fingernails. They never play in the mud. They don't know what it's like to scrape a knee when they fall off a bike because, somebody has bought them the helmet. They bought them the elbow pads and the knee pads and the this and the that. Why not just wrap them in bubble wrap? The Creator, when he made Adam, did not wrap him in bubble wrap. He gave him the knowledge he needed. But when the serpent came to Eve, there was no barrier there. There was no magic protection there to prevent Eve from speaking to the serpent. There was no helmet. There was no knee pads. There was no elbow pads. Our Creator was Father enough to allow Eve to eat the fruit, to allow sin to enter the world, to allow man to fall. And in all of his efforts to pick us up, dust us off, and put us on the right path, we just kind of keep saying, "Now I'm going to lay here in the dust or on the concrete, and I'm going to cry, and I'm going to whine. You've got to make me feel better." Sadly, too many pastors today, that's exactly what they're doing with their congregants. They're making them feel better without actually providing any type of ability to heal the person. Good news doesn't heal you. Only the power of the Almighty can do that. We need to fill them up with the knowledge that they have, or that, the knowledge that they need so that they can do something so important. It's in Leviticus 19. Yeshua repeats it. Love your neighbor as yourself, right? If you don't teach someone how to love themselves properly with the care and the respect, doing the things that mature people do, making sure that you go through the motions of being able to present yourself to others in a respectable manner. If you're not going to do that for yourself, there is no way you are going to be able to love someone else. Remember, it doesn't say love your neighbor so that you can love yourself. It says love your neighbor as you love yourself. You have to be able to first understand and know what that love is so that you can then treat someone else appropriately. If let's use the example of a drug pusher. Many drug pushers don't use the drugs they're pushing. Did you know that? Many of them don't. They're not loving themselves, and they're not treating somebody else like they treat themselves. They're treating someone else worse because they're putting themselves first. When you put yourself first, you can't put anyone else ahead of that. However, when you put other people ahead of you, you have the respect for them because you have self-respect in that manner. The good news is one generation is all that is needed to change the process. If we can teach one generation how to respect and care and love yourself, they can in turn reach out to others. They can have the ability to do that. One generation is all it takes to change. One generation is all it takes to make the world a better place. One generation that learns to live the way they were designed to live can make a difference, but it has to start now. It has to start now. If you're not willing to do everything you can to make sure that the young people that you are around are being filled with good stuff instead of sugar, if you're not there to make sure that they're getting the real word of the Almighty instead of the traditions and the doctrines that we like to feed everybody, and adults are the same way. Adults are the same way. There's a lot of adults out there that that are so childish because they've never had real bread and real meat. All they've ever got is the milk and the soft food, and then they moved into the candy. And once they got their first taste of candy, it was over. Their health declined. Their ability to think declined. Their ability to care for themselves and love themselves declined, and therefore they can't care for anyone else. But one generation is all it takes if you are willing to live the way you were designed by your Creator so that you can pass that along. That's the good news, is all it takes is being able to start. If you need help with that, you know where to go. GiveGod90.com and take those little steps and then teach those little steps to little people. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Or you've been sitting there really quiet today.
Thanks for joining us, and teach those little ones.
Absolutely. Until next Thursday, hopefully we'll have some better news. The world doesn't have to go the way it's going, but it seems to be. Until then, many, many blessings, everyone.